Prince William silences Camilla. After courtroom evidence exposed her royal manipulation plan, it started not with a bang, but with a folded letter sealed in gold and hidden away for decades. August 28, 1997. That date meant nothing to most people until now, but to Prince William, it was the day his mother whispered from the past, warning him with 10 quiet words: "If anything happens to me, look back to the palace." That letter, written just 3 days before Diana's death, hadn't seen the light of day in over 25 years. But now, it was evidence. The courtroom at Westminster felt like a tomb when he walked in. Heavy stone walls, ancient wooden benches, and silence so deep you could hear every heartbeat. William didn't come dressed like royalty. He wore a plain black suit, a muted gray tie, and a look on his face that could cut glass. But he wasn't there as a prince. He came as Diana's son. And he brought the letter with him. The moment he stepped up to the witness box, everything changed. Cameras stopped flashing. Even Camila, poised and polished in the front row, suddenly looked like she'd forgotten how to breathe. She didn't flinch, but her hands betrayed her, fingers clenched so tight around her dress that the fabric pulled. Her mask of calm wasn't cracking yet, but it was shaking. William laid the envelope down gently, like it might shatter, and when he opened it, the room held its breath. "Your Honor," he said, his voice low but clear, "this letter was written by my mother 3 days before she died. She believed something was coming, and now I believe it too." The letter's contents were simple. No conspiracy theory, no wild accusation, just that quiet warning. Look back to the palace, and suddenly everyone was. The courtroom shifted. All eyes turned to Camilla and Charles. He looked like a ghost, hollowed out, eyes fixed on the floor, pretending not to hear. But Camilla? She looked up. Briefly, and in that one glance, William saw fear. The judge allowed the letter into evidence, and then William asked for the recording, the tape. It was Deanna's voice, quiet and sure, playing through the speakers like a ghost had been summoned. "If I die suddenly, let this voice be heard. My security is being changed without reason. Someone wants the word accident to hide the truth." By the time it ended, the courtroom was in pieces. Reporters were crying. People in the gallery clutched each other's hands like they just witnessed something sacred and cursed at the same time. Even the judge took a moment longer than usual to speak again. Then came Edward Marsh. The old man walked in slowly, his hair silver, his posture stiff. He had been Diana's bodyguard back in '97. And what he said turned everything upside down. The Paris trip was arranged, the route was changed last minute, the radio frequency was altered, I was pulled from duty that night with no explanation. His voice was raw, like each sentence cost him a piece of his soul, but he kept going. And when he repeated what Diana had told him the night before she died, the room fell dead silent. "Edward, if one day they call it an accident, don't believe it." By now, Camila wasn't looking at anyone. Her hands were still, her face drained of color. William stood again, his voice colder than before. "She saw it coming, and today we see it too." And with that, the throne shook. Not from war, but from truth. The next morning, the sky over London refused to lift its veil. Heavy clouds pressed down as if mourning something deeper than weather. Outside Westminster, a sea of faces gathered, holding candles, clutching white roses, their voices rising in one repeated cry: "Justice for Diana!" Inside the courtroom, the tension returned like a shadow that had never really left. Every seat was filled, every breath was tight. No one was ready for what came next. William stood again, this time with a second envelope. This one was unmarked, but inside were handwritten notes, dated 1997, from a private meeting at Clarence House. The ink was still legible, each word slanted and deliberate. The last line stopped the air. "Change the route. Remove excess guards. Ensure the accident is convincing. C." A single letter. Just C. But it rang louder than any name could. The chamber turned to Camilla like a compass finding north. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. Her jaw tensed. Her fingers, once so composed, gripped the bench so hard her knuckles paled. William didn't blink. "This handwriting has been authenticated. It matches yours." Camila looked up at him, eyes burning, not with denial, but something else: rage, panic, the fury of being exposed after years of being untouchable. Then suddenly she laughed, a dry, brittle sound, too loud for the silence, too broken to be mistaken for strength. "Explain," she hissed. "You want an explanation?" Her voice trembled on the edge of madness. She wanted to destroy everything: the monarchy, the system. She thought she could walk away and still wear the crown in people's hearts. The judge raised his gavel, but it was too late. Camila was unraveling. "I did what I had to do," she snapped. "To protect the legacy, to protect us." The room exploded. Gasps, shouts, journalists scrambling to capture the moment. Some people in the gallery stood up. A woman sobbed into her hands. Another shouted, "Murder!" and had to be escorted out. Through the noise, William remained still, like the eye of the storm. Charles didn't move. His hands were folded tight. His head was down. He didn't even flinch when his wife crumbled beside him, her body bent under the weight of her own confession. The judge slammed the gavel again and again until the court stilled. William finally spoke. "This is not suspicion. This is not speculation. You heard it yourself. A signature, a plan, a motive. The hand that helped orchestrate my mother's death now sits in front of us." The silence that followed wasn't calm, it was suffocating. Camila had nothing more to say. She didn't cry. She didn't deny. She stared straight ahead like someone trying to outrun a truth that had already caught her. Outside, the chants grew louder, shaking the windows with their rhythm. Reporters called it a reckoning, a collapse of image, a moment the monarchy could never erase. That night, a statement from Buckingham Palace interrupted national television. Camilla Parker Bowles would make a live address. No one had seen her since court ended. The broadcast was set for 8 p.m. When the time came, millions tuned in. She appeared alone in a grand, dimly lit hall, dressed in black, her voice barely holding together. "I believed silence would protect the crown," she said, "but silence is no longer an option." And then, with a hollow stare into the camera, she said what no one expected. "I hereby renounce the title of Queen Consort. I will withdraw from royal life permanently." The screen faded to black. For many, that was the moment history turned, not because of punishment, but because the truth had finally won. Mist rolled across the lawns of Althorpe as morning broke, soft and silver, draping the estate in a hush too sacred for words. The gravel crunched beneath William's shoes as he made his way toward the lake. No photographers, no security detail, just him and the memory that pulled him forward. At the center of the still water, the small island stood untouched. Willows bowed gently over Diana's resting place, their branches trailing the surface like fingertips brushing glass. Milvers, however, loud like a dying wind, had already arrived and seeped. Around the stone, white roses bloomed out of season, a circle of quiet defiance against time. William approached slowly, a bouquet in hand, the same kind placed outside Buckhamel the night Camilla stepped down. He stood in silence, the weight of everything, courtroom chaos, the cracked mask of Camilla. His father's hollow stares settled in his chest. He bent down and placed the roses at the edge of the lake. "It's done," he said softly, voice rough with sleep and something heavier. They finally listened. No answer came. Only the soft rustle of leaves and the gentle lapping of water. The photograph would appear in newspapers worldwide. William, alone at his mother's grave, head bowed, white roses at his feet. There were no speeches, no palace statements. But the image said enough. It was the face of a son who had carried the truth to the surface, no matter what it cost. Across the city, outside royal gates, people continued to gather. Candles flickered, children placed drawings of Diana in flower beds. Some wept, some stood silently, others sang the same hymns heard at her funeral decades ago. They didn't chant Camilla's name. They didn't need to, her absence was loud enough. Camila remained secluded in a cottage deep within Windsor. The palace said nothing more about her, and no one saw her in public again. But in that quiet house, she existed like a shadow, pacing the halls, avoiding mirrors, staring at the garden that now lay bare and wind-battered. Her world had narrowed to silence. No titles, no duties, no crown. She spoke to no one. Some days she muttered to herself, staring into space. Other days, she sat by the television switching through channels, always landing on one of Diana's old interviews. Her fingers twitched when Diana smiled. Her eyes flickered when the crowd erupted in love. Sometimes she whispered it should have been different, but never explained what she meant. Charles never visited her there. His own silence grew heavier. He appeared only once after the court proceedings. A single frame captured of him leaving the palace, sunglasses on, lips pressed tight. He didn't speak to the press, didn't issue a statement. His retreat was not exile, but surrender. Inside Kensington Palace, William received a short message from Kate. You made her proud. He sat with it for a long time before replying. I just told the truth. Later that evening, he found himself staring at a photo of Diana tucked behind a bookshelf. She was smiling, hair windswept, arms wrapped around him and Harry as boys. He touched the frame. No more silence, he whispered, not for me. Not for my children. In homes across the country, parents explained to their children why people were laying flowers. They told them about Diana, not the headlines, not the conspiracy, but the woman who chose kindness when the palace chose cold. A new generation was learning her story, not the version polished by press offices, but the one spoken from witness stands, letters, and tapes. And somewhere in the quiet, it became clear. This wasn't just justice for a princess, it was liberation from a legacy of silence, a turning point, a promise made real. The crown remained, but something else, older, truer, had finally been restored.